People say that it's very hard to manage the Palo Alto Firewall. I don't think so. And you're going to agree with me. In this video, I'm going to show you how to deploy a Palo Alto Firewall so that users on a specific network are able to access resources that are sitting on the internet. And we're going to use this diagram, this topology, and it's very similar to what you might expect on small, medium, or big companies, okay? This is small, but it is very powerful and important. So, first of all, let's break down this topology. Okay, this is our firewall Palo Alto, and right now it is connected between different networks. So let's break down. So here on this side, we're going to call this as the outside because this connects to the internet. Okay, so we have these two links that connect to ISP1 and ISP2, and we have another link here. So that's the inside. Okay, let me write here. That's going to be the inside where we have normally the users on the network. Like you are using your computer to access the internet, so it means that you're sitting on the LAN or the inside zone of your network. So we want to allow this PC to go through the Palo Alto firewall and use one of these two links and to reach this web server. Okay, that's our main goal. So on the firewall, we're going to allow this traffic to flow through the firewall. We're going to create the policies that will allow this traffic and also some configuration that we're going to see in a moment. Now this side here, the interface MGMT, this is the management interface. This is also referred to as out of band interface. So this is used to manage explicitly the firewall. Okay, this is considered to be like the management plane. So it is like a specific, a logical place on the firewall that is only used to manage the firewall. And we have these three interfaces on the data plane. That's where traffic flows for end users. Okay, so to manage the firewall, first we have to know, okay, how do we manage the firewall? So we can do it using the CLI or using the graphical user interface. To manage through the graphical user interface, we first have to know which IP address is going to be assigned, or we're going to assign to the management interface. In my case, the management interface will be assigned dynamically an IP address on the subnet 192.168.43. Okay, so first let's check which IP address was assigned. So we're going to open the firewall and the default credentials will be admin, and you can see that it was assigned the IP 43.131. But first let's log in with admin. Okay, now we have to change the default password. So first we have to type the old password, and I'm going to type the new password. And I think, okay, yeah, that was a problem. Okay, now it's correct. Okay, so please change your password prior to deployment. Okay, so if we want to check the interface IP, we could run the command show interface o show interface management. Okay, and we can see that it was assigned 192.168.43.139. So let's try to open this HTTPS 192.168.43.139. Okay, and we get this warning because this is a self-signed certificate. So click on advanced and let's connect to this Palo Alto. So the credentials will be the same that we use on CLI. So I'm going to use my new password. Okay, and this is the initial dashboard. So once we log in, we're going to see this message. We're just going to click do not show again, do not show again, and the other one, do not show again, the last one, do not show again, and we're going to close this. Okay, yeah, just remind me later. Okay, so this is the initial dashboard, and there are a couple of things that we can do this. So like if we click on device, we can change parameters such the host name, the time. So I'm just going to change the host name to be something that I want. So let's name this as PA Palo Alto Firewall 1, and that's the only change I'm going to make, and I'm going to save that. Okay, Palo Alto Firewall 1. Okay, so couple of things that we can start doing. So if we look at our topology, we have 3 interfaces, right? 1.3, 1.1, and 1.2. So let's start assigning IP address on these interfaces. So let's go back to our GUI, and we should go to network. Okay, and we have interfaces 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now there are a couple of things that we have to understand about Palo Alto. So Palo Alto has this concept of zones. Okay, recall when I was explaining earlier about the inside, the outside. Palo Alto uses zones to determine which interfaces should have which type of policies. For instance, here these 2 interfaces, they are sitting at the outside zone, we could say, because they connect to the internet. So it would make sense to say these 2 interfaces, they are assigned to the outside zone. As for this interface, it should be assigned to the inside or internal zone. Okay, so let's go and create first these zones, because we're going to need to assign the interfaces to specific zones. So it is a requirement on Palo Alto. So first we go to zones, and right now it's empty. So we're going to add zone, and we're going to name the first one as just want to use inside, and we're going to change the type to layer 3, and it's going to make sense in a moment. We're going to save these, and I'm going to create another one that's going to be outside. I'm going to change the type to layer 3. Now we're going to save this. Okay, so I have 2 zones now. If we go to interfaces, okay, let's begin with interface 1.1. Let me confirm the IP address. It should be 116.8.2, and I'm going to assign the IP let's say 3 on this firewall. So we're going to change the interface type to layer 3, and here on security zone we're going to select the outside zone. So here on the virtual router, we have to select the default one. So the virtual router is like VRF, so it is a way to segment different routing tables inside the router. Not going to change much on this, but let's just choose the default one for now. Now we have to assign an IP address to this interface, so we're going to add a new IP address, and that's going to be 168, and I believe it's 2. Let me just confirm, 116.8.2. So say it's going to be 3/24. Okay, and this should be enough. We're going to save this. Now we're going to do the same for 1.2. We're going to edit this. You're going to change the interface type to layer 3, and the virtual router, just select default, and the security zone is going to be outside. Now let's go to IPv4. We're going to add a new IPv4, and now this is going to be 116.8.3. So 116.8.3.3/24. Okay, and we're going to save this. Now let's go and add the assigned IP address for E13 interface, and here I'm going to use the IP address 192.168.1.254. So first let's change the interface type to layer 3, and the virtual router to be the default one, and we're going to change the security zone to inside. Okay, now let's go to IPv4. We're going to add the IP address to be 192.168.1.254/24. Okay, and we're going to save this. Okay, so we have 3 layer 3 interfaces with the respective IP addresses. Okay, and we have the 2 zones, inside and outside zone. Okay, now just because we did those changes on the firewall, it doesn't actually mean we are changing the settings on the firewall. Now, Palo Alto Firewall has what is called the candidate configuration and the running configuration. The running configuration is what's running on the firewall at the moment. The candidate is like a configuration file that we want to push to the firewall. So right now we're making changes on this candidate file. So now we have to send these changes to the firewall. So to do that, we're going to commit those changes, okay, and send to the firewall to become the running configuration file. Okay, the changes were applied successfully. So we can see that now the interface, the link state shows as green, okay, but is it really working? Now, let's make some tests. If I log into PC, okay, and let's just confirm what I have in my routing table. So I should be able to ping 192.168.1254. It doesn't look like it's working. Okay, so what about if we test this from the firewall itself? Okay, so let's go to device and should see troubleshooting. So let's select the test to be ping, and the source, let's make it 192.168.1254. And let's just confirm the IP is 12, so the host is 192.168.12, and let's execute this. Okay, so it's running the test. Okay, let's see ping result. So it looks like it's successful. So just because we can't ping the firewall doesn't mean that the IP address weren't assigned to the firewall. Okay, by default the firewalls, they won't allow ICMP, they won't reply to ping, so just know that it is expected. Okay, so the IP address was assigned to the firewall. What do we have to do next? Now, next we have to allow the traffic to go from this PC to the internet. And there are a couple of things that we have to do. First of all, we have to create the policy that will allow this traffic to pass through the firewall. So to do that, we go to policies, and here on policy, we're going to create our first policy. So we have these default policies. We can add a new one. It's going to be added on top of this one. And let's name these as allow inside to outside. Okay, and the source, let's select the source zone to be inside. Now the source address, we can leave any, but let's just create an object that will represent our internal network. So we're going to click on add, and we're going to click new address, and name, I'm just going to use n underscore, and the subnet is going to be 10_24. It just makes easy to identify this object in the future. So we're going to leave the type as IPNet mask, and going to type the subnet 192.168.10/24. Okay, you're going to click OK, and it was added our subnet or the object. Now for destination, we're going to add the destination zone to be outside. Now the destination address, because we want to allow the PC or the internal subnet to access any device, any destination address, we don't know which addresses, we're going to leave as any. The remaining, we're going to leave application service to default, and also I want to enable log at session start. Okay, so the action is very important, leave it as allow. Okay, so we're going to click OK. Okay, we just created a policy that tells the firewall to allow traffic from this subnet 192.168.10 to go to the outside zone to any destination address. There's one thing we have to do, is to translate these internal subnets to the outside interface of the firewall. So we have to go to net, and we have to add a new net rule. So click on add. So here we're going to name this as net, let's say inside to outside. And the original packet, let's select the source zone to be inside, the destination zone to be outside. As the destination interface, we want to select specifically the two interfaces we have on the outside, so 101. And the source address, we're going to add our subnet 192.168.1.0, okay? And the destination we're going to leave as any. Now the translated packet, we want the translation type to be dynamic IP and port. We want to translate to the interface address. We're going to select the interface to be 11 and the IP address to be the IP assigned on the outside interface of the firewall. Okay, now we're going to save this. Now recall that we have two interfaces, one directed to each ISP. So now we have to create another rule for ISP2. So we're going to add a new one. So actually I have to change the name just to make it easier to differentiate. So inside to outside via ISP1. Let's make it easier. So I'm just going to save this. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to paste to ISP2 and everything else is going to leave as it is. The source zone, we're going to select inside. The destination zone is going to be outside. Destination interface to be 1.2. And the source address, let's select our subnet 192.168.1.0. Okay, and let's go to translated packet. We want the translation type to be dynamic IP and port. We want to translate to the interface address. Select the interface 1.2, and the IP address is going to be 192.168.3.3. Okay, and just going to save this. Okay, so we have two NAT rules that will translate the internal LAN or the internal subnet to the outside interface IP address of the firewall. Now, there's one last piece we have to add on this puzzle, and is to define the gateway for the firewall. Recall that this is a firewall, but we are just dealing with policies. There is a basic thing that we have to also add is the routing, because that a firewall is also like a router. Okay, so we have to route traffic to a known destination to a specific gateway. So in order to do that, let's go back to network and we go to virtual routers, and we're going to edit the default virtual router. Just to make it easier to understand, I'm just going to change from default the name to VR default. Okay, just to make it easier. VR, I know that's a virtual router. Now we have to go to static routes, and here we have to add two static routes. So let's add the first one. That's going to be towards ISP1 link. So let's say that's going to be just use all caps, default route via ISP1, and the destination is going to be 0, 0, 0, and the next hop is going to be so let's see, probably I'm using 1, 1. Let's just double check on this one. Okay, so that's 1.168.2.1. Okay, and the metric is going to be 10 BFD, and that's okay. Now let's add a second default route, and I want to grab the name just to make this easier. Cancel, add a new one. I'm a bit lazy today, so destination 0. Now the IP address that should be just bring ISP2 IP address, and I'm going to grab 1.168.3.1, just paste here, and I have to increase the metric because I want the firewall to only use the first link when it's available and only use the second link if the first one is not available. And we're going to save this. Now, it should be okay, but there is one small catch that I want to add in this puzzle, and we want the firewall to be able to detect that if the first link or the link through ISP1 is available all the time. So we want the firewall to monitor this. In order to do that, I'm going to show you a trick. We want to enable path monitoring. So path monitoring, we're going to add what do we want to validate. So I'm just going to call path PM, path monitoring, just monitor ISP1. Okay, so the source IP, that's going to be 116.823, that's ISP1 IP address. The destination IP, and that's going to be 2.1. So that's ISP1 outside IP address, and I want this to be sent every 1 second, and if it fails 3 consecutive pings, then it's going to fail over to the second one. So it's like the firewall is going to send ping every 1 second, and if it fails 3, it's going to consider that the link is down and it's going to fail over to the second link. So it's going to remove this link from the routing table. Okay, let's click OK. And the preemptive hold time, this is something that we have to adjust because this is a lab environment. I'm going to set it to be 0. Okay, and the reason why is that it says the following: in case the link recovers, the firewall is going to wait 2 minutes before moving back the traffic to the first link. Now, because this is a lab, I want this to be as fast as possible. I'm going to set to 0, but in production environment, you have to adjust according to your environment. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. So let me double check. So I have 2 default routes, 2 gateways. ISP1 link will be the preferred one because it has a lower metric, and the ISP2 will be the second best link. Okay, we're going to click OK. Okay, it's saying that I didn't specify the interface. So let's go back. Destination. Okay, so I have to say what is the interface. So that's 1.1. Okay, so probably I have to do this again. 0, 0, 0. Okay, so the interface is 1.1 and the IP that should be the 2.1. It's going to be 2.1. Okay, so that should be okay now. Let's confirm. Okay, and I didn't assign the interface yet. So now I'm just going to copy this because it's going to remove. Yes. So it's going 0, 0, 0. And the IP is going to be in this one. And yep, I should be okay. And I have this. Okay, so now, yeah, it's okay. So now we can commit or push those changes to the firewall. Okay, the changes were applied successfully. Now let's go back to PC and see if we can actually reach the web server. And web server IP address, that should be 116.844. So let's see, ping 116.844. And it's working, and we can see which path are we taking. So if I trace route to 168.44, it should say that we're using the link via ISP1. So it should say that the gateway 254, that's Palo Alto Firewall, then it used the link 116.8.2, so is this link, and then it reached the gateway. Now I also configured EEM or IPSLA on ISP1, so that in case of a problem, in case of a failure on this link, it won't be the default gateway on this side of the network. So I'm using HSRP this is outside of the scope of this demo. But in case this interface E00 becomes unavailable for some reason, it won't be, our ISP1 won't be the gateway. So at this moment he's the gateway, but let me show you. If I show stand brief, so it is the gateway, and ISP2 is the standby router. So I'm going to shut down the this link E00, and this will cause the ISP1 router to stop being the default gateway. Plus, because we enable path monitoring on the Palo Alto Firewall, it will fail over after 3 seconds to the ISP2 link, so you should be able to fail over to the backup link. Okay, so let me run continuous ping to 16844 and just send a bunch of packets. And now if I go to ISP E00 and I shut down this link, so we should see that we're going to lose a couple of packets there, but it's going to recover. Okay, so you can see it already recovered. We lost a couple of packets there. So now let's run the trace route again, and we are using now the backup link. As you can see, this is the Palo Alto IP address and this is 3.1. So we are now using this link, and the gateway is also replying through this link because the E00 interface is shut down. Now if I bring this interface back up and I run a couple of pings there, so it's going to take less than 5 seconds. Okay, and the link is back. Now let's confirm which path are we taking. So if I trace route, should be using this link again. Okay, so 1.16821, so that's the link via ISP1. Okay, we can also confirm these by monitoring the logs on Palo Alto. So if we go to Palo Alto, let's go to monitor and traffic, we should be able to see the logs, and you can see here the source from 192.168.12. So let's take a look this in more detail. So we can see that it hit the police, allow from police, ping, this is the rule, allow inside to outside. And let me just expand this a little more. Okay, and what else do we have? So we have the source IP 192.168.10, and the zone is coming from the inside zone. So this is the source, and it's coming from this interface and is being translated to this IP address 1.168.2.3. Now the destination, so it's trying to reach this IP address, that's the web server 1.168.4.4, so it's going to Taiwan. And the zone is outside and it's using this interface 1.1. Okay, so that's it guys. I hope you found this really easy to deploy. Basic steps, but very important steps to get started with Palo Alto Firewall. I hope you took value from this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.